In the upcoming videos, I'll teach you how you can create accessible e-learning courses with Articulate Storyline. And in this first video in the series, I'll explain the new Storyline Player Accessibility Controls feature, how it works and how you can use it for more accessible e-learning courses. In the December 2020 update, Articulate gave the Storyline 360 player a big facelift, and they changed the order of the controls to a more logical order, but they also added accessibility controls for users and keyboard shortcuts, so users can use shortcuts to operate your e-learning course. Now, you can find the accessibility controls by the gear icon, and in this video I'll zoom in on the accessibility controls. So this is the gear icon in the new Storyline player. And if you start a new project, the accessibility controls are turned on by default. And for now there are three controls. There is zoom by fit, accessible text, and keyboard shortcuts. I'll switch over to Articulate Storyline so I can show you how you can uncheck the accessibility controls. So we're now in Articulate Storyline. And what I said earlier, for a new project, the controls are turned on by default. But if you don't want to use the controls, you can uncheck them. Now, you can find the controls on your home tab in the player. So let's click player. And now my player window will load. So here is the player with all the properties. And you'll see that there is here a new checkbox, accessibility controls. Now it's checked. So you see the gear icon here. If I uncheck it, the gear icon is hidden now. So that's the option to uncheck and hide the gear icon. Now let's dive in the different controls more in depth. Now, as you can see in the player preview, the first option is the zoom to fit option. Now, when this switch is turned on, learners can use the zoom settings in their browsers to make slides bigger and easier to see. Now, as you can see, the zoom to fit option is turned off by default. But if you prefer to start with it turned on, you can open the variables manager and set the new variable player zoom to fit variable to true. And I will show you. So let's close this one. I'll open the variables manager, scroll down a bit, and you see here the player zoom to fit variable. Now, I'll double click it, and now you can set the default value to true. And then if you launch your course or publish your course and launch your course, the value will be set is on standard. Now let's open the player again to see what is the second toggle. So you see the second toggle is the accessible text. Now, with the accessible text, learners can switch between high fidelity SVG text and accessible HTML text. And when the accessible text is enabled, learners can use custom style sheets or browser extensions to change how text displays. For example, they might swap fonts, enlarge the font size, or increase line spacing. Be aware that if you want to use the accessible text, modern text rendering must be turned on in Articulate Storyline. Now, for every new Storyline project, modern text rendering is turned on by default. But if you want to use accessible text in an existing model, you can check if the modern text rendering is turned on. And I will show you how you can do this. So let's close this one. And therefore you go to your design tab, click on fonts, and here at the bottom of the drop-down window, you will see that use modern text is checked. So if it's not checked, you can check it, and Storyline will use modern text rendering. Now, also accessible text is also turned off by default. And if you want to make sure your users can use it from the start, you can turn it on through the variable manager. So I'll open my variable manager again, and I'll scroll down. I'll double click on the player accessible text variable, and I change the default value from false to true, and I click on OK. Now let's go to a published course to show you more about the third option, and that are keyboard shortcuts. So we're now in a published course, and you'll see the Storyline player, and on the gear icon you see the third option, keyboard shortcuts. Now the keyboard shortcuts are turned on by default, and there is no variable to disable them. And in a published course, a user can click on the shift key and the question mark to see which keyboard shortcuts are available in eLearning. Now, you see that you can toggle zoom to fit with Ctrl plus Alt and T, toggle accessible text with Ctrl plus Alt and T, mute and unmute your eLearning if you use audio with Ctrl plus Alt and M. Toggle closed captions if you use this with Ctrl plus Alt and C. You can replay a slide by Ctrl plus Alt plus R. You can play or pause a slide by Ctrl plus Alt and P. You can go to your previous slide by Ctrl plus Alt and a comma. To the next slide with Ctrl Alt and a period. And you can also submit a question or a submit slide with Ctrl plus Alt plus S. Now with the keyboard shortcuts turned on, even if the next button isn't available, a user can use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl plus Alt and the period to go to your next page. This is something to be aware of when you're building your e-learning course. But there are also other options in the Storyline player, and I will show it to you right now. So let's close this one. So a user can tap to the player controls. So what you see here is a back to top player tab, and now I'll tap to the slider or the seek bar. And for the seek bar, a user can use the following shortcuts. So with the space bar, if I press it, the seek bar plays and pauses the timeline. And if you use your home key, you can jump to the beginning of the slide, and with the end key you can jump to the end of the slide. And with your arrow keys you can increment a forward or backward, and you can also jump forward and backward with your page up and page down keys on your keyboard. Now I can tap, for instance, also to my audio toggle, and I can also here have some keyboard shortcuts. So with my spacebar or enter, you can toggle it on and off. If I press my end key, and let's show this, you can maximize the audio. If I press the home key, I can mute my audio. And with my arrows here, let me see, shift tap it again, you can see I can increment it by 10%. Now, this was the first video in a series on how to build more accessible e-learning courses with Articulate Storyline, and I hope to see you back in my next video. I'm transforming my Articulate Storyline classroom training and also my YouTube tutorials to a laser-focused online course on how to create engaging e-learning training with Articulate Storyline. Now, are you interested? You can join my waiting list and you'll be the first one to know when my online course will launch. You can find the link to the waiting list in the description of this video below. And if you want to create great engaging e-learning in Articulate Storyline, make sure that you get my free step-by-step guide on how I create e-learning in Articulate Storyline. And I know for sure that it will help you because it describes my whole process that I use for every e-learning module in Articulate Storyline that I build. And was this video useful to you? Then hit the like button below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you won't miss any of my upcoming videos.